You're listening to Art Heroes Podcast, the show to help you thrive as a digital artist. Tune in to learn how to transform your passion into a career. Get inspired by other kick-ass 2D and 3D artists, and find out what it takes to be an art hero.
Hello guys, what's up? This is Maria JD. Welcome to the Art Heroes podcast. Thanks for tuning in back again this week. And if you know what's D&D, if you have played the game, if you've really been into it, you're going to be specifically interested in hearing what we're discussing today with our guest, Miguel. And he actually goes by nickname MZ4250. I hope I didn't screw up the numbers. So Miguel is really well known all over the internet as the 3D designer of so many D&D pieces, and he's got a huge Patreon account. So that's another topic that I'm really curious to tackle with Miguel, because he managed to grow it from I guess zero, as everybody else, to close to 4K patrons. This is huge. I know many of you out there are thinking of making their own patrons. And so if you want to see what it actually takes, well, I'm going to ask Miguel right now. Let's get into it. Okay. Hi, Miguel. We're live now, and welcome to Art Heroes Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, you're welcome.
Just checking the connection as well. Yes. Okay. So, Miguel, I've got a long list of things to cover, but I'm just gonna start with a little intro that I came across your models because just so many people on Patreon love it. And that's kind of, I think, I first saw your art, and I'm pretty happy that you agreed to come on the show and just share a little bit about what you do and how all this came about. So do you mind just starting with like an intro from your side, how this looks from your side?
Sure. So hi everybody. I'm Miguel Zavala. On the internet, I go by MZ4250. The MZ is obviously my initials. 4250 is a random batch of numbers that I just chose, that I just stuck with. There's no meaning behind it. There's nothing. And it works. It's just convenience now. It's just, it's already there. I'm not gonna change it. But yeah, I'm I guess you could say, professional 3D artist. But I'm a 3D artist who focuses on 3D modeling miniatures for 3D printing. My primary focus is tabletop gaming, particularly in the realm of fantasy gaming, such as D&D, Pathfinder, the Kobold Press stuff, etc. I started about 6 years ago as a hobby. It had been about 8 years since I gotten my degree in art, and I kind of just let go to focus on my military and government career. And then about 6 years ago, by the way, is the bird noises okay?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
The bird noises are amazing, actually. I'm sure that so many artists would love to have that.
Yeah. All right, cool. Just making sure. But yeah, so 6 years ago, my wife, Jen, girlfriend at the time, she told me, "Hey, there's this amazing thing called 3D printing. You still have 3D skills. Why don't you use that to make like a D mini or something for our games?" And of course, at the time, I was so jaded, and I was just like, "No, never again. Art is dead to me." And she basically dragged me into the DC library to take the course. And then as soon as I learned how 3D printing worked, I was just hooked. And so she was very, very smart to basically pull my ear into the library. But yeah, I posted my first 3D printed little black dragon on Reddit, and Reddit loved it. And then I made a blue dragon, and Reddit loved it. And then I just thought, Reddit is really digging what I'm making here. So let me just do the whole monster manual, because why not? And I thought, well, 3D printing's already been around for a while, and I'm not exactly the first 3D artist. Let me look around and see if somebody's just done this already. And no one has. Like, it just didn't exist. Nobody was doing this. It was like there were people that were doing things for tabletop here and there that were very, very generalized, but there was nothing that was actually D&D based. And I just thought that that was strange, but I just went for it. So made a bunch of dragons, and then I just went alphabetically in the monster manual from first page to last. And then after that, I just kept going. I just kept making more books. I just kept printing them and printing them, and sometimes just modeling them. Got to about 12 D&D books covered, and the entire time, I made sure that the models were always free. They were always posted in a specific site that Wizards was okay with. Because there's some sites that are like actually owned by bigger entities like Microsoft or Google and things, and they don't like it when their stuff is posted there because then that means that technically now Microsoft owns that stuff, and they don't want that. So I followed the rules. They were super nice to me. And it's been great for 6 years so far. I've made some custom minis for some of the Acquisitions Incorporated people and some of the other streaming games for fun. And yeah, as I kept my collection kept growing, and my modeling kept improving, once again, my wife said, "Hey, you should maybe start a Patreon." And of course, at the time, because I never listened initially, and I never do, uh,
Seems that she
uh,
knows better,
she
huh?
always knows better, and I have to listen. I love you. Yeah, she's over there. Um, but yeah, she said, you should do a Patreon because people will, support artists that way. And of course, again, I was like, no, absolutely not. My things are already free. Who would possibly pay anything? And of course, that was wrong because people do like supporting artists and people do like, the little perks that a Patreon can give. So about a year, was it about a year? It was like about a year and a half into having a Patreon. I was making enough to actually pay the bills. Like I didn't really need to have my quiet office job. I was working at the EPA, and it was a fine job. I mean, I had good leadership. It was a 9 to 5. You do your thing, you go home. Your work doesn't follow you. It was a good job. Made a lot of friends there. I'm still friends with a lot of people there. But once the bills were covered by my 3D art, it just didn't seem to make sense to continue working at this place when I could be making my own schedule and doing my own thing. So I took the big jump, and it's been, let's see. Oh, yes, I remember now. So my last day at the office job was on Halloween. I dressed up as Godzilla too, which was great. And that was the last day of me working at a regular job. So it's been almost a year now, and it's been fine.
So you're
It's
gonna
a
have
little
the
stressful.
anniversary, of
Oh,
like
thank you. Yeah,
quit
yeah,
nine to
like 7.
five
Yeah,
anniversary.
yeah. And
Wow.
it's been a really good experience. A year into self-employment, stressful at times because I had to learn so many things out of nowhere that you just don't learn in school. Like I had to learn about how to do quarterly taxes and how that works. And apparently, there's these things called mortgages. I just thought you just took a house. Like no, you have to pay for it. I don't know. And there's just so much stuff that I just had to learn this year, like pretty much trial by fire, but it's been fine. Yeah, it's the pay obviously like fluctuates every month, especially during a pandemic. So that's a little stressful, obviously, but we've been okay. And yeah, here I am making art and
Wow.
you know
So,
doing
it's
all right.
like you're a very different type of an artist, I would say. Like, not a typical story from like what I can tell from my experience of talking to like 50 artists in a row for this podcast. So it's pretty unusual. Like, how do you know about D&D? Like, are you a fan at all, or is it your wife?
Oh no, I mean she's a fan too. We play in a bunch of games very regularly. We're doing Curse of Strahd right now on a weekly basis. It's great. But I have been playing D&D since I was 6 years old. And I'm 38 now, so it's been a while. It started in the 80s, right around the Satanic Panic. So during the 80s in the US, there was this moment where D&D was like being compared to Satan worship and devil worship and sacrifices. And it was nonsense, and it was made worse by like this awful movie. I love Tom Hanks to death, but man, he made a mistake being in that one. But yeah, so the Satanic Panic was happening, and playing D&D was really rebellious. It's like it was like, whoa, are you playing D&D? Did you didn't tell anybody? I mean, you saw in Stranger Things. I'm assuming like that was part of that. So during that time, while I was in Sunday school in a Baptist church, uh, downstairs in the Sunday school, the babysitter, if you will, was making a D&D campaign with all of these kids. So I was playing D&D when I was 6 in a church of all places. And yeah, I was pretty much hooked as a little kid, and I've been playing ever since. Played throughout grade school and high school. Every time I deployed to Iraq, there was a little side D&D game that was happening when we came back from missions, and like it just never stopped. College kept going, and I'm playing now, and it's probably never gonna stop. I'm probably just an old man rolling a new character for all I know.
So, okay, I'll jump in the 3D component of all of this after, but I'm now really curious about the table games. So, since you're into it, what's the next big thing? Because D&D has such a huge fandom, it's really unbeatable, and seems like it's one of these timeless games. I don't
Yeah.
even know if it has a comparison, because there's D&D and there's a bunch of other tabletops.
hmm I think my primary focus is anything that revolves around D&D, since there's just so much to do, and there's just so many wonderful ideas and like concepts out there. And I like the idea of tapping into maybe like sci-fi games here and there, or Eldritch horror, Cthulhu type games here and there. But the list of things to create for D&D is just never going to end. There will always be another book to tackle, and even if someday, I don't know, the leadership in Wizards changes and they're like, we don't like this Miguel, take him down, then I would still have so many models to make that my patrons would want me to make for their specific games or whatever. Like it would just never stop. So yeah, I'm pretty much focused on that, and it's gonna keep me busy for a very, very long time.
So explain to people who have no idea what are the books, because you were
Oh,
mentioning that you're making books, and yeah, I think they'll be just a helpful intro.
oh yeah, sure. So D&D. So for those of you who don't know, D&D is a role-playing fantasy game. It's basically you play pretend, and then there's dice that decide what exactly is happening, and it's a cooperative story where there's a guy who's the rules person, he's a dungeon master, and then there's the players who make their story. And so when it comes to the books, the big one is the monster manual. It's this big book that has all of these monsters that you can use in this game. And some of the things are very classical, like there's the dragons and vampires, and then there's some really weird things, like there's this monster called the Beholder that has like tentacles, and then it has eyes at the end of the
Oh,
tentacles, and it's
cool.
very handsome looking. Um, and yeah, and then of course, but there's other books. There are other books that have like their own stories in them that the dungeon master would follow along, and he would make the fights in the games and the role playing based off of what's in the book. At the end of the book, there's always usually an appendix that has here's the monsters inside this book. Inside each book, there would be maybe 20 monsters, 30 monsters. Then there's other monster manuals, if you will, that have hundreds of other more creatures. And so yeah, it's just this huge list of things that you can make a 3D model of and 3D print yourself. And as long as you don't try to sell it, then you're pretty much good to go. So it's pretty nice.
Wow. Okay. Cool. I think that's been really helpful. So now let's just touch a little bit on the 3D part of it.
Sure.
So what's your stack like? What and how did you actually learn all of this? Was it also like self-taught, being self-taught pretty much?
So yeah, so I did get a degree in art a long time ago now. I feel like 12 years ago, I think roughly now. I did get a degree in art, and with a focus on 3D modeling, and it set the foundation just right for what I needed to do. Um, and I did work in the industry for like about a year before my one of my Iraq deployments, and so I gained a lot of experience that way too. But when I got back, I took a really long break from doing anything 3D. But when it was time to do what I'm doing now, I kind of just self-taught myself and basically brushed off the cobwebs by using tutorials on YouTube. So I picked up Blender because it's free, and it wasn't too hard to like get back into it because in school I was taught Maya, and
Yeah.
Maya has a very very unique UI. Blender its own very complicated UI, so I didn't feel too strange. Like, oh, this is very bizarre and weird. Yeah, this makes sense. Um, so yeah, it just took a lot of self-taught, self-teaching. But I made it a very, very regimented process of when I got home from my office job, I
Okay.
would do a couple of hours in 3D. And for me, it was a relaxing hobby. So, have a glass of wine, play some jazz in the background, and then, you know what, I'm just going to make a pterodactyl. Why not? So
Okay.
if you do that process for a couple of years, where you come home, it's like, I'm gonna make something. Why not? Let's see what I got. It's gonna build up your skills. So that's how I pretty
So
much got to this point.
yeah, so are you saying that just a couple of years of daily, I don't know, how many hours, like an hour or two?
Let's see. I'd say when I was doing this casually before I became a full-time person, I'd say every day between maybe 1 or 2 hours every day, nonstop.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I'm definitely in the thousands and thousands of hours at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure so. So one thing I'm curious about, like, how confident did you feel about, like making models and putting them on, well, okay, at first, where before Patreon, before you actually started making money in that, like, did you understand that you're like at a pro league, or were you rather intermediate? And I'm just like wondering what was the starting point?
I never accepted that I was like a professional in any way. I always considered myself intermediate because the models that I made, like a level of detail was not very high because at the time the 3D printers, they were FDM printers, which is the
Yeah.
glue gun
Yeah,
building
yeah,
up
yeah.
stuff. And those details are not very, they're not there. So my 3D models at the beginning, they were very, very basic. And, I just thought it was very intermediate, at most. But as more advanced 3D printers became commercially available, like resin printers, details just skyrocketed. So I had to up my game too. Uh, so yeah, it wasn't, it was like, I think out of the 6 years of doing this, the first four was me just, you know, considering myself a very casual, very relaxed intermediary artist who enjoyed what he was doing. And then it was like pretty much like the last 2 years that I started picking things up and doing like real sculpting and actual
Great.
details, hair and facial details and that.
So, were you paid at all during these first 4 years for your art? Because I mean, I understand that it
No.
was just your side gig. I mean, which is not technically a gig because it's not paid.
Mhm. Yeah. There was let's see, so that I've made are actually safe for commercial use. So some of the
Okay.
things I did put on the website Shapeways, and
Ah, yeah, Shapeways.
occasionally somebody would order something here and there. Oh, so there's a siren going on over there. I'm gonna close
It's
my
not super
door.
loud,
So
actually.
oh, it's not okay, good. Anyway, yeah, I live outside DC, so of course. Uh, but anyway, yeah. So there was a Shapeways page that I had, and the majority of my files were shared there for free. But sometimes people would buy something here and there, whatever. It'd be fun money, I guess. I did set up a page on Drive Through RPG just to put my files up there, and if people wanted to pitch something, they could, but it was never anything really like serious. Like there was never like I could never like actually pay any serious
Like, yeah,
bills with
like
it. It
actually,
wasn't until
like,
the Patreon.
yeah, yeah. So it was
It
not
wasn't
like
until the
serious,
Patreon
like
came
making money
around.
with that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it was fine. Like I think at one point during those 4 years, I think I made enough to like order pizza. I was like, oh, that's nice. Yay, pizza. Um, so yeah, it wasn't serious until the Patreon came around.
Okay, cool. That is super interesting. And like during your first like 4 years of like doing this, have you ever like thought of getting a job in the industry back again?
Honestly, no. I was very content with just how my life was. Like I'm making art, there's no pressure, I have an office job, and that job is fine. Like it was just very under control. I was just like,
Okay.
you know what, this is fine. Like this is good. I don't need to worry. And technically, like, a big studio like Bethesda is literally there. Bethesda. Like there were options out there. But I just thought, I'm very happy with how my art is right now and how everything is. And I just, didn't really feel the need to join into an industry again that, there's no guarantee that you'd be happy in it. So I just
That's true.
stuck to myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different level of competition, I guess. It's just absolutely different pace.
Yeah.
Um, so talk to me a little bit about Patreon. So what it takes actually to be successful in Patreon and talking about like pace and competition, do you feel any of it
Mm.
as somebody who's a Patreon artist?
Well, I try not to think of myself as competing with anybody because there are just so many different, like, people out there trying to do different things. But how you would be successful in this really varies on just how much work you're going to be putting into it. My recommendation to people when they start something like this is to not quit their day job, like, because when you start this, there's no guarantee you're gonna just make enough to pay the bills immediately. Like that's just unheard of. I mean, when I started my Patreon, it took roughly about a year and some change before I was able to actually make money to pay the bills. But technically, the reason why the I did so well is because I had 4 years already of just making a name for myself on the internet. So I had that notoriety, I had that name recognition that's built on 4 years of this nice guy sharing things. So, you need to make a name for yourself. That's a big thing. You need to up your game when it comes to social media, interactions. So you have to have a Twitter and an Instagram. You have to regularly post on Reddit. But yeah, you have to regularly tweet. You have to regularly post on Instagram. You have to join all the Facebook groups that involve your art and postings there. Like it's a lot of interaction that you need to do and you need to maintain in social media. So building a name for yourself, that's the big one, obviously. And again, that is not easy. It took me four
No,
years
it's
to have
not. It's
something that resonated.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that. The next thing that you have to do is, you need to be able to pump out large amounts of content at a very fast pace. And in the world of 3D, it's very, very hard to break away from delving into the rabbit hole when you're working on a project. You make a creature and it's like, oh, but maybe if I just put more scales here. Oh, maybe if I just maybe his eyes are like, and then 40 hours later you're still working on the same thing. So it's very, very tempting to delve into the details. So you need to work out a system where you can create what you want to represent that would also, not take you an entire month to create. Especially when it comes to, for instance, what I do for 3D printing. It's very, very tempting to really get into the details of something, but even with resin printing, some of those details are not going to show up, and you're
Oh my
kind of
God,
just wasting
yes.
your time.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like, if you're gonna get down to the details, like, okay, maybe lines on a face, sure, that makes sense. Lines in the hair, okay, that's fine. If you're trying to do sweat glands and and hair follicles and things like that, you're completely wasting your time. It's never gonna show up. So that's another thing is to, I love you too, Kat. And is just, yeah, work out a process where you can find that balance between where you're satisfied with what you created, but is practical enough to still be printed. So your work process, your social media, the amount of work you're going to be putting in, obviously. If you're going to try to run a Patreon and to do this, you have to treat it like a job. So you have to put in a lot of amount of hours, and that's very difficult when you're already working a full-time job someplace else. So that's another thing is you have to find that balance of making the time to either practice your art or actually create content. What's another thing? I guess kind of a common sense point is, you should, as you're making a name for yourself, you should always interact with a person online, like if they were literally next to you. So basically, don't be mean, be nice. And if people are mean, choose your battles. Is it really worth it to respond to this person who's clearly just a troll? Like, why would you bother? So be smart with your interactions and, just be nice. What else? Let's see.
I mean, that's a lot
Um,
already. Actually, just as a follow-up question, you said that like treat your Patreon as a job, and that's exactly what I imagine. Like when it is when it is your job. So, do you
oh
have
yeah,
something like a release schedule? I don't know, like something like a
yeah.
weekly, or I don't know.
So I don't. So some Patreons they do this like big monthly release where they release everything in this one day and then they just kind of disappear. I don't follow that. I prefer to release things as I create them. That's why people who are subscribed to my Patreon, they're gonna get an email pretty much Monday through Friday with this is what I made today. Um, and some patrons they don't like that, but for me, it's my way of A, tracking what I've been working on, but B, also showing people, hey, you're invested in me, so I'm gonna show you that your money was invested well. Um, See, the thing is that for me, I have I have a military background. I've served in the Army for 21 years. I'm going to be retiring as a major. Most of it's been reserve components, so I haven't been completely full time all the time. But I have a military background, and it's just engraved in my head to have something done by the end of the day and report that to whoever's in charge.
Oh my God! Now I want to be the patron. Just
But yeah, that's kind of in my head. It's like, okay, well, you're up now. Let's go exercise. You done exercising? Great. Okay, let's go eat. Okay, you done eating? Great. What time is it? It is 7. You are running out of time. All right, time to make some art. Let's make some art. And then I'm gonna make art. And if I make 2, 3 models, I would consider myself satisfied. And then I post everything, and then it's like, well, it's about that time. It's roughly about 5. Okay, it's a normal work day. I'm done. And yeah, it's just regimented, engraved in my brain. if I didn't finish a project that day, I would just feel so guilty. I was also raised Catholic, so I'm just gonna feel guilty no matter what. It's just kind of how
That is
yeah.
amazing. So, like, is there something like an inspiration for you, or it's more of like you have like certain plan or like the routine, and inspiration just kind of comes. How does this work for you?
Well, I'd say 90% of the things that I create are based off of artwork that already exists. Either it's official artwork from the D&D people, or a patron maybe draw something like, this is what my character looks like. Can you make that? Like, that's something I get a lot. So I'd say the majority of the stuff that I've made was based off of the inspiration from, was inspired from people who wanted something represented in actual three-dimensional design. Occasionally, I just create something out of the blue. It doesn't happen often. Usually, if it does, it's going to have lots of claws and feathers. But but yeah, that's, I'd say like that's about it. Like on the occasion, I'll just come up with something on my own, but most of the time, it's not too difficult to find something that'll you can work with, you know.
So, why do you think people follow you just in general? Not follow, like why are they your patrons? And how much of this stuff do you think gets printed?
Well, I'm pretty sure that the majority, like at least 99% of the people who are patrons of mine, like they just want to support an artist. They think that it's great, and they do it. That's why like the majority of the people in my tiers are like in the lower, like $1, $5. Um, I do try to make it more worthwhile by offering little perks here and there, the $5 patrons, they have access to my Google Drive. So that's all 2003, no, 2000, 2,400 of my models in one place. So it's convenient.
Wow.
Uh, so I offer little perks like that. I made a nice little Discord so people can chat amongst themselves on getting help on, hey, how do you print this? How does this work? Things like that. Um, for the 3D printing folks who use resin printers, all of my pre-supported models are in one spot. So I try to make it worthwhile as much as possible. But in the end, most of the people, they just like the idea of supporting an artist that helps them with what they do. Because even during this time of a pandemic, people, when they're careful and space things out or get tested and stuff, they could still play their games in person, usually maybe outside or something. But people are still doing what they want with this. And, if I'm helping in some way, it's nice.
Cool.
There are actually some people that are using my files for augmented reality games now, and virtual tabletop games where they use the models, but it's in a virtual like space. It's pretty wild. So, if it's created as an STL file, it can be turned into an OBJ, and once it's an OBJ, you can do anything with it. So it's pretty smart stuff.
Wow, crazy. Actually, now very interesting. I'm just taking a note to take a look into that, like in augmented reality gaming. That
Mhm.
is, yeah, sounds like that could be interesting. So, then about printing, do people frequently send you like pictures of your stuff printed? And actually, do you still print stuff, like a lot of
Yeah,
it, or
yeah. I haven't
how
been
many
printing a
printers
lot.
do you have? Follow-up
Oh,
question.
I have two. I have a Prusa i3 Mark III. It's a really big printer that does the FDM stuff. I also have a Anycubic Photon. That's the resin one, and that's the one that does all the little high detailed, very small models, and that's like my favorite one. I still print. I don't print as much recently because my in-person games are not as frequent as they used to be.
Yeah.
But once a month, well, not once a month. Usually about like 5 times a month, I do print a thank you gift to like the really higher tier patrons, because I do have a handful of patrons that like they're paying, they contribute $50 a month, and I'm like, wow. I mean, thank you. So I might send them something nice, like, hey, you have a character you got or something. I'll make it, whatever. And it's a thank you gift. But yeah, so I do print here and there still. It's slowed down as much. I think once we're all this is over
Yeah.
and moving past it, I'm probably gonna be picking up again. Uh, but
Cool.
yeah, no, I still print. It's still fun. It's nice. It's nice to just sometimes paint a miniature, not do any 3D. Just put my little goggles on, just paint away. It's because art is still art, and it's very funny how painting a miniature is very similar to painting pretty much anything. You have your base colors first, then you gotta put in the highlights, throw in some shade, and then put more highlights. It's very funny how it's so similar to like canvas painting. But yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
So, do you think just, as now with so much experience with Patreon and as an artist, do you think any kind of artist can build a successful Patreon account? Let's say if he's committed or she's committed to building like let's say a personal brand or whatever, just like an artist image, or they're like, major limitations, requirements, or something like this.
I think that like any artist, if they're willing to put the amount of work into it and they make something that really makes them stick out in the crowd, that it's totally doable. Uh, it just really depends on what they make and how much work they're willing to put into it. There are there are now hundreds of 3D artists that are doing what I do. Uh, there's just so many now, and it's I think like I don't know which ones will like make it and which ones won't make it, but if they can make something that's different and unique and worthwhile, I think that they can succeed for sure. Um, if they focus on things that everybody has already seen and made, maybe not so much. I mean, do you know how many orcs there are now out there? Like, there's so many. Like, nobody cares anymore. But if you make an orc wizard with a fire dog on top of a leaf dragon, you know what? Maybe that'll make you stick out a little more. So there you go.
Okay, well, that sounds like the whole different niche. I don't mean orcs. I just
Yeah.
I just mean like Patreon and like just a lot of things that you've got to consider before actually making it like a
Hmm.
job or something.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, but I cannot stress enough though that like don't just jump into this blindly without having some kind of stable income. Have some kind of a 9 to 5 already that exists because there is a chance it might not work out. So
yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So do you
yeah, easier
still,
said than done.
yeah, do you remember how many people you like are following you on average? Just like kind of this year?
I mean the Patreon itself, I'm at 3,700 now. My Twitter following is like 3,500. It's not the biggest Twitter I know because there's like people that have like millions, but whatever, I'm getting there.
No, no, I mean like
Uh,
Patreon specifically. I think actually when I first found you, you were at about like probably 2.5, and that was
mhm,
already kind of a, you know,
yeah,
on comparing to many other 3D artists.
yeah.
So
But yeah, no, when it comes to the Patreon, I mean, I could just look at it right now. I haven't actually checked. Oh, there it is. 3,733 patrons. So, okay, it's nice.
yeah, no, very
Um,
nice. I mean, that's I think that's great. And just curious, what's your personal next big thing? Like since we already covered what you think about the games, so as of where do you want to get with there's just like kind of a half chill life, or there is anything that you're striving for?
I honestly, I hit a point right now where I'm very content with how things are. So for me, the next goal is pretty much whatever major storyline comes from the D&D or fantasy world. Like I don't have like a high goal because I see myself continuing to do this as is. So some people ask me like, oh, would you see yourself like create like maybe making a studio or something or making a business? I just don't really see the need to that. I'm pretty good right where I'm at. So now my next goal is the next model that is that I'm inspired to make. You know, it's not really a huge thing. Like maybe I don't know, get a castle. That'd be kind of nice, right? Okay, I'll get a castle. That'd be kind of cool. Um, yeah, no, I'm pretty happy like right where I'm at. Anything that comes my way, I'm just ready to take it on.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. Look, as we're running out of time, I'm gonna still like do a little tradition that we have here in the podcast.
Okay.
There is a questionnaire of like 10 questions, and you've got really like a couple of words, up to one sentence to answer each question. And yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, I'm good. All right, go.
If you don't have to, right? But you have to say
No,
that you pass.
I like challenges but I have a very strange brain, so my answers are gonna be weird,
Let's
but I'm
go.
down.
Let's go. Let's see.
Sure.
So, oh my God, I already see how you answer several questions. Anyway, no, it's not like I see, but I see that you're gonna give me very different answers from everybody else. So, what's
Yeah.
your number one tip for combating distractions from working from home?
Uh, hmm, that's a good one. You said it wasn't my number one thing?
Like tip, yeah. What do you do to combat
Oh,
distractions, or what you can recommend?
hmm. Listening to Mongolian throat singing. Like if
Okay,
you have headphones on and you hear that like easy. So you
perfect.
can zero in on what you're doing. So
Favorite tradition or holiday?
Halloween.
Okay,
Definitely
well,
Halloween.
I know why.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
Yeah.
many reasons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite way to get in some exercise?
Favorite way? Waking up and doing it. I mean, yeah, I have a very regimented structure, 5 days a week, put in an hour and a half. And if I don't look hot when I'm done, then I'm doing something wrong. So there you go.
Okay. Perfect. Um, what's your source of inspiration? Kind of spoke about it, but
Mm, my source of inspiration is the look on the faces of my players when I reveal the monster that's gonna destroy all their characters. That's the source of it. That's it. Like that's the moment when you pull it out and they're like, "Oh my god, that's so! Oh, we're gonna die." Yeah.
amazing. Um, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice I've ever been given. There's been a lot. It's been a lot. Um. Hmm. Wow.
Or maybe not the best, but let's say just like a really good advice.
Uh. Okay. Do your best to end your day leaving the world, or at least your world, better than when you started. So, did you finish the projects that you wanted to finish? Did you make your significant other happy? Is your house a little cleaner? Are the cats okay? Like, did you do something that made your world or the world? Like, did you vote? Um, do
Cool.
something, yeah, and end your day knowing that you did something to make either your world or the world a little better.
Wow, I love that. And like thanks for the examples. I think that's really beautiful. It's just yeah, it's just a really nice way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So how do you celebrate little victories?
Hmm. Um, I'll either make myself a nice cocktail, maybe I'll enjoy a beer, or you know what? I'll just go hug my wife and tell her how great she is. I love you.
um Amazing. Then well, not the last one, sorry. If you could see one movie again for the first time, what movie would that be and why?
Ooh, there's so many good ones. It would definitely be the Fellowship of the Ring, because I read The Lord of the Rings when I was a teenager, and then seeing that on screen is like, oh my God, it's perfect. I can't wait to see the next one. What? So definitely Fellowship of the Ring from the Lord of the Rings trilogy for sure.
Amazing. And the last one now, what's your backup career? I know it's
Probably,
different.
yeah, I know. Probably, just brush off the dust from USA Jobs account and just find another government job. I mean, I'm a veteran, got 21 years of service. I left my office job on a high note. It's like, if this really failed, it's like, well, go
Too
back to
many
the nine to
options,
five.
actually.
Yeah. I mean, let's go back to the 9 to 5. I'm sure I could find something. It's not that hard, with my background.
Yeah, and also
Yeah,
living next to DC, that's like,
yeah. But God, after a year of basically being spoiled, where it's like waking up, what time is it? Oh, that's right. I don't need to freaking put on a suit and run to work. No, I can just go and exercise, and then I can make some art. Like, yeah, like if I had to do it, obviously I would do it. That's it's just how I'm built. And also, you're serving your country in some way. It's nice. But would I want to do that again? No, not after a year of living my life. Like I want
okay.
to continue enjoying it.
Well, thanks for explaining how that actually compares. That's quite vivid.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, Miguel, thanks so much for coming on the show again. Like, and this has been a blast, actually. And it's been really interesting because I'm pretty sure that many people can relate with their 9 to 5s now. And yeah, and also with the thoughts and ideas, like how fast and quick and easy that could be, just like doing
Yeah.
like a, a
Oh,
really easy move to the internet.
yeah. If you have a 9 to 5, always appreciate it and ensure that you have that stability. But if you can follow the art and you can follow what you want to do, if you're smart about it and dedicated enough about it, it can be done. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it can be done. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. All right. Well, thanks again for coming. I'm gonna turn off the recording, and it's been a blast. I'm gonna put all the links to your Patreon account and everything under the video. So, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, that's under the video. If you're listening to this on in the podcast form, there is a link to the show notes on our website, and you can find all the links to get to know more about Miguel. So, Miguel, thanks again, and cheers.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow, I loved it. Don't know about you, but I absolutely loved talking to Miguel and learning from him. And I think it was amazing. It's really nice, to see artists like him to just take their skills, go out there, and everybody loves what they do. That's amazing. I really, really love that. So, guys, thank you again for being here all this time. And if you loved what we do and you want us to continue, give us a little like down there. Any engagements are really welcome. We really love when you ask questions as well. So feel free to subscribe and activate this little bell next to subscribe so that you get notified when we release the next episode. That's it from me. I'll see you next week. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Art Heroes Podcast. Check out www.artheroes.co for show notes, more interviews, and free tools made for you by our team of mentors. Tune in next week for more inspiration, and keep up the great work, hero.